Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Noni Davis coming to you from St. C Academy here in North Carolina. Um, as I've mentioned before, I am a legacy owner of this private school, and we have been here for 30 years. I inherited this business with the co owners, my father, William Edward Davis, the late William Edward Davis, and my mother, Sylvia Davis. So I am currently the primary owner and trying to share this information, get my podcast together so I can share some of the things I share with my students. One of the things I'm just so excited about, I just want to thank everyone for joining and for this podcast as we embark on this another session of the amazing, incredible history of revolution, endurance, perseverance, victorious living of African Americans. At least most of us, the majority of us, feel that way about ourselves. And so right now, while this empire is crumbling, is determined, and while it's in its is descent into foolishness, it is doing everything it can to try to undermine the achievements of African Americans, and they really don't understand who we are. They don't understand that, when we're celebrating Kwanzaa, these are principles that have been here for generations. We just didn't have African names on them. We have always practiced self-determination, Kujichagulia. We've always embraced this idea of umoja, unity, because if we weren't unified, we wouldn't have anything. In our unity, we built communities. We created Ujama, cooperative economics. We had uh, uh, businesses. We had tailoring shops like my grandfather's, laundry businesses. We had schools. We had uh, insurance companies, banks, and barber shops, and music. I mean, a theater, movie theater, and uh, beauty shops, and all kinds of things. Shoe shine, shoe repair shops. We had restaurants. Everything you needed was right there in our community. You know, like I said, tailors and seamstresses and the like. We practice Kujichagulia, self-determination. We practice Ujima, cooperative work and responsibilities. Our churches were taking care of our folks because we couldn't get no money from the government. And we had a sense of purpose. We practiced Nia. We were creative in the way we did these things. That's our Kuumba. And Imani, we had faith. We were in our churches. We were in our mosque. We were in our communities praying and determined to accomplish what we needed to accomplish. But these people don't know who we are. And so last week I started, the last couple of weeks actually, I've been going through these spies, and we started with the Revolutionary War. And last week I introduced Miss Bowser, who was part of Miss Bowser was part of the Civil War. So here we are today. I want to delve more into this session on Civil War um, spies, how Africans were an integral part of that. And the more we learn about our history, the more we learn that our ancestors were incorporating like these Kwanzaa principles in their daily lives in an effort to create and achieve the freedom they deserved throughout the diaspora. So this is not just in America. This was in Africa. This was in the Caribbean. This was in England, in Europe. And so no matter what the supremely stupid court says, and that's what I'm going to just call them, we have about 3 intelligent people on there, and the rest of them are just morons. Must just always remember who our ancestors were. And so last week, for the Revolutionary War, I introduced James Armistead Lafayette, Tego, Kwaku, Cato, Saul Matthews, and Elizabeth Liss. These were the people I introduced. And then I talked a little bit about Mary Bowser And, and they even had these detective agencies and these spy rings among white people. So white people had their spy rings, but black people were major folks who were participating in this. And we also did it. I call it, it's so such a silly term. It's called the reverse Eno. Everybody who's played Eno knows what reverse Eno is. So I like to say that our ancestors did a reverse Eno on white people when during the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. We let them, what the frame of mind they had regarding African intelligence, African potential, African new psychological and physiological capacities. We let them believe whatever they said, and then we're like, we're gonna let you use it against you. They thought that Africans didn't have the intelligence to engage in the collection of information and the stealth to pass it on to the Patriots and vice versa to the British. But our ancestors used white supreme stupidity to our advantage. So last week, like I said, I talked about Mary Richard Browse. This is one of the Civil War spies who infiltrated the home of Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy in Richmond, Virginia, and collected information about the military strategies and plans and passed them on to an abolitionist group of spies and people who were concerned about the United States and maintaining itself, and not separated or divided because of this war. And they used that information and passed it on to the military. Now, this week, I would like to introduce some more people. And at next week, or probably at the end, I'll introduce Robert Smalls and Harriet Tubman. But I wanted today to start with some of the others who are anonymous or maybe known to some people, but I didn't know of them. I didn't know, like I said, I knew about Smalls and I knew about Harriet, but there were some fascinating people, and even a guy here in North Carolina. Um, and I wanted to say, so according to the Confederate General Robert E. Lee, this quote comes from the Center for the Study of Intelligence, so like CIA kind of stuff. He stated that the demise of the Southern Army was caused by information leaked by the Negroes, whose status as simple menial workers and laborers led officers and officials to disregard them and discuss pertinent information regarding the war in their presence. This is what Robert E. Lee said. It was black people that caused the Confederacy to lose the Civil War. Think about that. One of the reasons this historical information about these African American spies, because I was trying to figure out why is it that we don't know about these people. Well, this information was either concealed because it was so dangerous. If they were found out, they were already killing and hanging other people. So it wasn't, I mean, white people. So black people the whole family could die behind this stuff. But so it was a possibility of retaliation, of extremely dangerous and violent response, and not only to the black families but to the white families. So this stuff was hush, 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 hush. The other thing was that anonymity, like I said, was often the best option. Another reason the information was probably lost was because much of the written documents were destroyed to ensure anonymity. And so, of both black and white spies, particularly in the South. So, for several reasons. And then, of course, the obvious one is that black people didn't do nothing anyway. So, that one is always lingering in there. But there was concern about protecting people so that they did not get so that they would not be to avoid violent retaliations. However, there were at least 10 African Americans whose bravery was acknowledged following the Civil War and documented by historians in that era. The Center of the Study for Intelligence introduces George Scott, John Scoble, and W.H. Ringgold. And then there's another lady named Mary Tuvestra. And then, of course, Robert Smalls. And then there's a man named Charlie Wright, another man named William A. Jackson, a man named Thomas McNiven, and of course, Mary Bowser, who I talked to you about. So today I wanted to go back and and Abraham Galloway, and he's the one that's from North Carolina, and he has a very interesting story as well. So I've already shared the information about Ms. Bowser, but let's learn about these other incredible people, because right now we are going through a Supreme Court decision that really is trying to take us back to before the Confederacy. And we just need to know that we are the reason why the Civil War was won by the patriots, not the patriots, but the United States of America. That was us. And so we should not be discouraged by what these people are doing out here, because we've done this before, and we just got to do it again. That's all. We just got to do it again. And so we're going to burn down Master's house. We're going to burn it down. So this article is like I mentioned above, comes from the what is it? Oh my goodness, I've already lost it. The what is it? The study of the Center for the Study of Intelligence. So this article introduces this term that they call the Black agents. These African enslaved Africans and free Africans were called the Black Dispatch. So they had a whole term for this spy organization. And the Union Army, it was the soldiers in the Union Army that used that term to describe African American spies who provided intelligence about the Confederate Army. So we had a whole thing called the Black Dispatches. Blew my mind. Okay, now Frederick Douglass wrote the following in 1862, the first year of the Civil War, the first complete year of the Civil War. The true history of this war, Frederick Douglass says, will show that the loyal army found no friends at the South so faithful and active and daring in their efforts to sustain the government as the Negroes. To sustain and the Negroes have repeatedly threaded their way through the lines of the rebels, exposing themselves to bullets to convey information to the loyal army of the Potomac. So Potomac, that's in D.C. These Black dispatches evolved because of debriefings of enslaved Africans who were either runaways or under Union authority, and they provided tactical information, military strategies as a result of behind the lines mission. So these were the people who were coming, coming from the South and crossing over into like DC, which is where in northern areas. So there is this man named George Scott. I don't know, do I have a picture of Mr. George Scott? I don't know if I have a picture of Mr. George Scott, but George, is that you, George Scott? Yes, that is a picture of you, Mr. George Scott. So this is Mr. George Scott. He was he's the first spy I'm getting ready to talk about here. So he was an enslaved African who lived on a plantation near Yorktown, Virginia. Now, I've taken my students to Yorktown. We went to Jamestown, Yorktown, all of that area to learn about Africans that were there. And that's where I saw my first pic. They had a statue of Nzinga of Angola to show that that's where a lot of the Africans who were picked up were brought there in 1619. We know that because they were on their way to Brazil and it was kidnapped. The ship was bombarded and they ended up coming to America on the White Lion. That was 1619. And like I said, these are people from Angola. So this is where George got. So he's probably an Angolan. He escaped and was headed to Fort Monroe when he observed the Confederate troops, and they were building the two fortifications between Yorktown and Fort Monroe. Now, this was going to be a problem because I don't know if anybody has ever been to Fort Monroe. I'm going to show you a quick picture. So this is Fort Monroe, and Fort Monroe is like on the peninsula, as you can see. It is right. It's in Hampton, Virginia, but it's right across the river in Norfolk, Virginia. Okay, so you see all this water, and these Africans were catching their little boats and getting right and coming right across that peninsula to Hampton, Fort Monroe. And I, had my children, my first three, my oldest three were all my first husband. They were all born in Norfolk, Virginia. So we spent a lot of time at Fort Monroe. We had military friends and everything. And so I understood when I saw this, I said, yes, because Fort Monroe, if the Confederates had come in to where Fort Monroe is, it would have been very difficult for these people to escape because they were landlocked. They were right there on the beach. And so what it says is that when this was at the beginning of the Civil War, and when Mr. Scott arrived at Fort Monroe and shared the information with General Benjamin Butler, Butler was like, this is a black man. I don't trust him. Let me get some proof. So he sent Mr. George Scott back out with these white Union soldiers. And of course, they went and what was it? These they said they were unreliable, and they wanted them to just substantiate the information. And so after several scouting trips, they found out Mr. Scott's information was proven correct. And General Butler concluded that the Confederates must have been intending to attack Newport News, Virginia, and which would be a big problem for Fort Monroe to be isolated from the Union. So they were like, what are we going to do? So what I also wanted to say is that they were called black dispatches. But at that time, Africans were also being labeled as contraband. Anybody who knows what contraband, that means it's some kind of illegal thing. It could be illegal money. It could be illegal property that is being confiscated by somebody else. And so the Africans were contraband. So whenever these Africans came into these military bases, they were called contraband property and stolen property, because Africans were literally stealing themselves away from white people. Insane, I know. Anyway, so General Butler decided that he was going to attack the Confederates. But the problem was he didn't have enough information, or he moved too quickly. This was the first preemptive strike, and it against the Confederates, and it was unsuccessful. The Union lost. However, this was not a reflection on Mr. George Scott, because they investigated and they found out that Mr. Scott was right. But what did they do? Mrs. Scott, I want to just show Mrs. Scott. That's Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott was right. I don't have a picture of that white boy named Butler, but I was trying to focus on black people today. Anyway, Mr. Butler made a mistake, and just, the thing did not work out. So he was the one that was at fault for not listening or developing a tactical military strategy that could defeat the union. I think maybe he was like just too overly confident. You know how that is. Anyway, so then this next guy, his name is John Scoble. Now, Mr. Scoble is interesting because at first they tried to say he was a fake, he wasn't real. This is John Scoble. Okay. And then this is another picture of John Scoble much later in his life. Okay, so I'm like, y'all got pictures of him, so how can he be a fictitious character?
He
Anyway,
looks mighty sharp and everything like that. They were dressed to the T's back then and everything like that. So he looking sharp and everything like that. I had to tease you because I was gonna see if I could find the picture and everything like that. Because back in the day, our gentlemen and our women were dressed to the T's and everything along those
absolutely.
lines. So we've even got folks dressing to the T's now. Because I think doesn't your school go up to uh high school, or do y'all just
Yeah,
go up to junior high?
we go through high school. Right now, we got high schoolers. Yeah,
I thought y'all went up to high school and everything like that because I've got a um, nephew because I got two nephews and one of them is getting ready to graduate. If I remember correctly, is Northern that he's going to be graduating from, and all along those lines. So I got to tease him and everything like that. So that's my nephew who is looking all sharp for his prom and everything like that. So he's looking all sharp for his prom and everything like that. So he's got his prom thing going on and looking sharp because he went to the
yes.
prom and now he got graduation. I believe it's Northern, but he got graduation coming up in
All right now.
June and
All
everything
right
like that. So
now.
you'll see him going to the car because I think
Yeah.
Malik let him out, borrow the car for prom and everything like that. So he's over there looking all sharp because it is graduation and prom time. So he's gonna actually be heading to UNCG to graduate and everything
Oh,
like
well,
that.
isn't
So,
that great? Okay, now.
yeah,
All right. Well,
so I
he
had to
is
give you a little bit of a
the
yeah.
tradition. The
He was
tradition.
looking like I'm sharp.
And we are. And you know what? If you can get them in a suit now, you're doing a big thing. A big thing. But
Oh yeah,
yes. So yeah, but
definitely.
this is Mr. Scoble. And they said what's interesting about Mr. Scoble is that he was from Alabama. I think
Okay,
from Alabama. And they said this man was able to no, Mississippi. He was
Mississippi.
Mississippi, but his owner educated him. And so they say he was very prolific. He was like an actor. He could assume all of these roles. And so he was the ultimate like spy.
Well,
And so he was provided with a quality education. And there's this man. Now y'all know about Alan Pinkerton. Let me see, did I
hmm
bring him? Okay, so I didn't know that Alan Pinkerton was also involved in I had a picture of him. Let me see if I can find it. Alan Pinkerton was also part of the spy rings.
oh wow,
Did you know that? I didn't know that. They say
I
he
didn't
came
know
down
that.
here. He came down here from where did he came? Let's see. That's Jackson William. Where is that? I had a picture of him. I'm gonna have to find. Oh, there he is. So this is Alan Pinkerton. The see, it says Chicago. He was a part of the Pinkerton
The
detective.
Pinkerton, like the law enforcement,
Yeah, the detective agency
right?
or spy. Yeah, detective agency.
Were
So
they like the equivalent of the Secret Service and everything like that? Because I think that they eventually busted like some of the big
right,
gangsters and everything like that, like Al Capone and folks like that.
right. Well, see, this was the person who founded the agency. This guy. And they said he was recruited by Major General George B. McClellan on the Army of the Potomac in Washington, D.C. And his job was to find out who could be the best spies for to get information against the Confederacy. And they said his job. And so what he did is he said, first he was going around looking at the merchants and the businessmen and all these regular folks and tried to get engage them. But he soon figured out, wait. The best group
Yeah.
are these African people because they are so inconspicuous. Ain't nobody paying them no mind. And so they could get all this information. And he said they were willing to do it because a lot of people were like, I don't know, I don't want to be involved in this. But the Africans were like, let's go. And
Mhm.
so he was able to create this whole spy network of Africans. And like I said, they call them the Black Dispatches, which is
Mm.
crazy to me. And so this guy, John Scoble was masterful in espionage. He could go in, pretend to be a coach driver. He could pretend to be just a male servant directly to someone, and then he would find his way into the areas where the Africans were working, right, and get in there, start gathering all of this information, and they said he almost got caught, and I think one of his people who he was. One of the stories was that he was in prison and the guy was in prison, but he was able to act his way out of it. Like, I didn't know. I was just this, person. I was just doing everything the man said. The white guy was hung. He was executed.
Wow.
Gobo was released.
Well,
I'm
we did some good job of acting, huh?
he fooled him and like, I'm just too dumb. I didn't even know what I was doing. And he was able to get out of the situation. Um, and he was able to share troop locations. What they say, he was able to determine the morale of the. How is the military doing? Are these people excited about being by here? What's going on? Are they sick? Are they getting enough food? All of these fine details that he was able to provide for the Union, so that they would know when to attack. How to attack. Should we let them starve? If they're already sick, should we let them get a little sicker? All kinds of stuff. That was Mr. Scoble, and he was a Confederate spy for about a year, but he also was part of another organization called the Legal League,
Mm-hmm.
which was a clandestine organization by Black people who were, they had their own little secret spy agency that was supporting the freedom of Africans.
Wow.
I tell you, I was just like losing my mind learning about this
Well,
stuff.
there's a lot of stuff that you can learn. When you mentioned Alabama, I just happened to look up Chat GDP and saw that there's a city called Hobson City, recognized as Alabama's first all-black municipality, and it was founded in 1899 and governed independently during the Jim Crow era. So they said it was established near Anniston and became the first town in Alabama to have an entirely black governing body, serving as a haven for self-governance and a stop on the Chitlin Circuit. But then there was also a town called Kawalagi, or I think it's called Benson now, but it was located near Lake Martin, and this was a thriving black community founded by John Jackson Benson, a former slave, which featured a school, a church, and the first black-owned railroad. That's right, we had our own railroad. And then
But
they said there was another one called Africa Town, which was
right,
founded in
Africa Town.
Mobile
That's the
after
one.
the Civil War by survivors of Clotilda, the last known slave ship. This community was
Exactly.
established to maintain their native language and cultural traditions.
Barracoon. I read that book, and that one was the person who found that information was Zora Neale Hurston.
Okay.
Zora Neale Hurston went down there and wrote a book about that man, Cujo. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I read that book, and they even have um, they were on Netflix
Oh,
about
wow.
their search, the descendants search for the ship, and they found it.
Oh,
And
they found the ship?
black black scuba divers were the ones that were instrumental in finding that ship. So
Oh,
they
wow.
found it. And so when people are saying, well, where the ship's at? Well, we got the Clotilda. At least we got that one. But there's a whole organization of black scuba divers that go out and do find these slave ships all over the world. All
Did
over
you
the
ever
world.
hear this movie called, I think it's called Whitewash, but it talked about how a lot of African Americans were into surfing, and even more so than the Asians
Right,
and other populations. And I think
right.
that movie came out a few years back and everything like that. But it talked about that whole culture that existed
Yes.
with us, where a lot of us were in that. And the Kentucky Derby was just held recently, and I know that in Kentucky, a lot of people forget that the first couple of winning jockeys were actually African
African
Americans.
Americans. That's right. And even with the that the uh, what is it? The board? What do they call it out there on the water? What you just talked surfing.
Surfing, right?
What's crazy is when I went to Sierra Leone, I saw all these brothers out there surfing. I was like, you just don't even think, but they're surfing right there out off the coast. See
I had an
everything.
interesting conversation, and I meant to bring it up to you last time, but I was talking to one of the ladies with Spirit House and everything like that. But we
Yeah,
were talking about this notion. I think they had gone to Gambia or one of the African countries, but they were actually asking the question because they had seen the sisters that it was coming from our area, and they were going like, "Well, why can't she speak for herself?" and everything like that, because they were under the impression some of the church, like some of the older people, that most of America was white and everything like that. So they really had not had it in their mindset that we have the kind of population that we have, because they were
right.
thinking, well, she should be able to speak to us because she's like the same coloration as us and
Right, right,
everything like
right,
that.
right, 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 right. Why don't we speak fuller? Why don't we speak Mende? Why don't we
So
speak?
they were a little confused because they were like, "Why can't she speak to us? Because I mean, she looks like us and everything
Uh-huh.
like that." And then they were saying, "But she's from America." And then they were like, and then that's when the elder was like, I thought Americans were white."
Oh wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. So some of them don't even realize that we're over here, right?
Right, exactly.
But Ariel had that same. My daughter had that same experience when she went down to Costa Rica. Uh,
Hmm.
she was just walking around, and people would come up here and start speaking Spanish straight to her, and she was like, "I'm American." They were like, "What?" They just assumed that she was from Costa Rica with the
Right.
rest of them. Just like so, we getting that everywhere you have black communities. They're like, "What in the world?" But I did want to do this last guy.
Go ahead and do the last guy. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just had
Oh,
to
no
show you.
problem, no problem. I'm enjoying this conversation. I love learning. So, and then tell your grandson, I mean your nephew, congratulations.
I would definitely let him know that.
Yes, because I would give him a shout out on the podcast.
Yes, definitely.
uh, but yeah. So the next guy, the last guy I wanted to talk about here was Mr. Ringhold, and Mr. Ringhold was another. I don't know. Did I have a picture of Mr. Ringhold? Let me see. That's Mr. Right. Nope, nope. I gotta look for him. That was Mr. Jackson. Let's see. Collections. Do I have him? Mm-mm. John Scoble. Mm-mm-mm. No, but I think when I pulled up this picture, this is a picture. This is not a picture of him, but this is a picture of a group of Africans who were spies for the Civil War. I thought that was a cool picture. Just imagine the Black Dispatch. Um, and so I don't have Ringold's picture, but he was a boatman, and this guy um, was they the Confederates were like, "Look, we need somebody. We're gonna take your boat, and we're gonna take all these black sailors." And in that area, Norfolk, Fort Monroe area, they already had Yorktown. All of that is water, as you can see with Fort Monroe. So they just kidnapped these people, and they're like, "Look, we're taking your boat, and you are going to transport us up and down, and you're going to move our ships, you're going to move our people, you're going to move all of our equipment, our military equipment up and down this river." And so while he was forced to become a spy, and he was like, "I didn't want to even become a spy, but they made me become a spy because they made me do work for them, and I didn't even want to do it." And so let's see. So while he was in Fredericksburg on the day that Virginia seceded, this was the
Mhm.
same time they seceded to the United States. The Confederate Navy just forced these guys to take their military troops and supplies up and down the Virginia Peninsula, and they did it for 6 months. So what happened? A storm came and tore up the ship because, of course, Norfolk is known for the little hurricane stuff, and it's
Oh yeah, they're known for their hurricanes and everything
and
like
it's
that.
terrible. And so what happened is that when the ship was destroyed, the man was able to get back to Baltimore, Maryland. As soon as he got to Maryland, he went to the Union offices, and he said, "This is what's going on." And he told them all the business. He dropped all. Then he spilled all the tea, and he spoke with Mr. Pinkerton, that same
Mm.
white dude, and told him everything. He told and became a part of the Black Dispatch in Washington D. Can you believe it, Mark? They had a whole name for us called the Black Dispatch.
The
They
Black
used to
Dispatch.
all dispatch all the black. African American spies.
Wow, the
Like,
Black Dispatch. Hey, Mama
yeah.
Noni and everything like that. I also saw something else that you'd be interested in, but apparently, and this was something I read in Travel Nowhere, but there was a bunch of towns we talk about how we can't swim, or at least that's the myth and everything like that. But there was
Uh-huh,
a whole
uh-huh.
bunch of towns that were referred to as the drowned towns because these were towns that were either destroyed or buried by a lake or a natural park. And one of them you'll know quite well, and that's Lake Lanier, because that was
Lake
actually
Lanier.
Oscarville, Georgia. So Lake Lanier is a popular
Yeah,
weekend
they
destination
discovered us
known
so.
for fishing, boating, and so much more. But it has a eerie reputation that is deemed it as haunted in Georgia. But at one time, the lake sits on top of the black town Oscarville, which was burnt down in
Right,
1912,
Oscarville.
and more
Right.
than 1,000 residents were first to flee following the allegations of rape. So Rob Edwards was arrested in September 1912, along
Wait,
with
they
Ernest
destroyed
Knox
a whole
and
town.
Oscar Daniel, both teenagers accused of murdering and raping a young white woman named May Crow and everything. But that town is actually built on there. And speaking of things with interesting names, after the trial and execution, white man known as night riders, so kind of like a earlier form of the Klan, forced the black families out of their homes by
Yeah.
bringing their land, churches, and schools. And once black families fled, Lake Lanier was built on top of what was burned down. But they also, I mentioned Benton, Alabama, because it had some interesting history.
Yep.
But people forget about Seneca Village. Seneca Village was
Seneca
began in
Village, right
1825, and at its peak
near. Mm-hmm.
spanned from 82nd Street to 89th Street, along with is now the western edge of Central Park. But in by the 1840s, half of the African Americans who lived there owned their own property, a rate 5 times higher than the city average, and everything
Yeah.
like that. But it was torn down for the construction of Central Park, and the only thing that remains is a commemorative plaque dedicated in 2001 to the Lost Village. And also Susanna, Alabama, or Susanna, was also flooded by Lake Martin. And according to Alabama Living, more than 900 bodies were moved from cemeteries before the land was submerged. And the town once included a gold mine, a school, two mercantile, a grist mill, a flour mill, a sawmill, a blacksmith shop, and a church. And we even were in the West Coast. So apparently there was a town called Vanport, Oregon. And in the 1940s, Vanport was the center of a booming shipyard industry because of World War II, and quickly became the second largest city in the state. But as World War II saw white males drafted to serve overseas, a labor shortage pulled in a great migration of blacks from the South. So with soldiers being drafted overseas to fight in the war, Oregon saw a labor shortage, and this resulted in a great migration of black Americans from the South. So they needed places to live, and the Albina neighborhood was the only place where black people could live legally. It became too small for the growing population of black Americans, and Vanport was built as a temporary housing solution. This is really interesting. They said at its peak, 40,000 residents, or 40% were African Americans. But then in 1948, massive flooding erupted in the neighborhood, and city officials didn't warn residents of the dangerously high water levels. Did they have something like that happen in California recently?
Yeah.
And many then evacuated town. The town was wiped out within a day. 18,500 families were displaced, more than a third Black African Americans, and today that area is known as Delta Park.
And so that many black people in Oregon.
I people know Oregon, yes.
That's crazy. I had no idea
They said
that
we,
there was
we, we, we took over Oregon. Who knew?
that. And how did they find out? Oh, but I guess so because of the war.
The
People
war, right? They left.
because of the World War. Because at first they wouldn't let black people in
Right,
go. And then they said, oh, we'll let y'all go. We'll
right.
let y'all go. That's crazy.
That's
That's
crazy.
crazy. There's so many stories. I mean, these drown towns are hilarious though,
Yeah.
because they're like the water is haunted. Why are you burying people and killing people and this?
Not only that, but like I said, it sounds very similar to what was going on recently with one of those towns in California. I just remember there was a town in California recently that
Yeah.
got attacked by a storm that was mostly black. I just can't think of the name of the town. I know one of our
Yeah.
other
Right. It was it the fire or was it
fire, right? The fire,
yeah, the fire? It was a predominantly black community,
right,
right? And most of those people lost their homes.
right.
Had to leave. That was last summer, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was last summer, exactly.
Yeah, last year. It was last
Mhm.
year. It was
Yeah.
terrible. And they're like they don't.
And they didn't give them warning. They said they didn't give these people warning, even though when a flood is coming. But they were like, it's just black folks.
What they don't know is that even though these things happen, we have always been able to pull ourselves back together.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know what? Y'all keep playing. y'all just keep on messing up. You just keep on doing this foolishness and think we're going to just fall to the wayside. Once we know our history and understand our history,
Once we know our history, then we have fun and everything like that. I don't know about you, but I've been really enjoying not the war because the war is sad. I'm not a big fan of war in general, but those AI commercials that Iran is doing against Trump
hilarious.
are hilarious.
Trump is
They got him looking totally silly.
they hedge pass.
Yeah,
They got Melania.
they got them all.
They
They,
got
they,
Cash Patel.
they've been nailing them all.
And I think they had Lady Bird.
Yeah,
Lindsay.
yeah,
Oh my God. All I can do is and then on the other side of it, they're extending this olive branch to America. Like,
yeah,
look, we ain't mad at y'all. We love
yeah.
y'all. We just want you all to see that we are all in the same boat.
Right.
You all have lost your children to war, and then they had the Hook,
You're right.
all that. And then you're losing your sons to this war, and we're losing ours too. Can you just see our humanity? And
Exactly.
I'm like, wow, Iran.
Right.
Who would have thought that Trump would would go and mess around and F around and find out what the people who are not playing with you. And they would tell you, we 5,000 to your 250. Have a seat. Have an entire seat. And did you hear about those women? They said that it was women. I think they said, I swear it was women. If not women, they said, you know how we have these rockets, right?
Hmm.
And they have, and our rockets are like $20 million, right?
Right.
They designed these $50,000 bomb rockets that have rockets inside, so they shoot out. And they said though they could have up to 100 hidden inside that rocket. 50,000, and
Wow.
they knocking our stuff out the air. And they said it was the women are engineers there. So while we're being told, well, they got this job and they ain't got no rights and they can't do this and do that and do this, they said over 50% of the people in the school, the universities are women.
Hmm.
I'm like, this does not match the narrative that I've heard.
The narrative is totally different because they would have you think that they are totally oppressed. And I'm not saying that there might not be some oppression because
And
I
we're
had
not gonna
that's a
say that,
long time
right?
ago.
But they are trying to get women. They are trying to destroy all of the professions that women are in. You have made sure 300,000 black women have lost their job, and
Right.
we don't even know how many African American men. And then you're also saying we don't want women to vote. You're trying to take away voting rights, take away abortion rights, and then now you're trying to say that even if you go to college, the profession you're in is not going to count. And y'all belong in the kitchen raising children.
Not only that, but they're trying to get rid of the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court just passed that crazy law where
That's
they
what I was talking.
basically trying to get rid of the Voting Rights Act altogether. They like, we don't care that y'all had a Voting Rights Act. We don't like it anymore. So they're trying to get rid of it totally.
Well, what's going to happen is that it's going to undermine them because they're very short sighted.
Mhm.
They're very short sighted. You have decided because even Iran has shown them. Oh, Iran is just this little bitty country, and they're a bunch of Muslim men, and they don't know anything. And if Iran ain't showing us when they said that they had these tunnels where these boats could come out from these little mini boats could come out from the tunnels and they're shooting blah 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 blah, blah and then going back down into tunnels underneath the Strait of Hormuz. I'm like,
You would think we would learn from the past, but also learn from history and everything like that. Because I mean, we've only been in the war with Iran, I think, less than a few
yes,
months and everything like that. But there's
see
another little country, it's a white little country and everything like that. But you think they would have learned from Ukraine because Ukraine has been kicking Russia's butt left
how
and right
I
and everything like that. So
said
you would think that he would have learned from his buddy Putin not to mess with small countries. But
no, because these people have to actually think about what. Okay, so they got this. So what we gonna do? What we
exactly
gonna And that's the same way black people were thinking.
right.
That's what they don't understand about it. And that's the reason why I say they're dumb. And even in this lesson, the black people were taking advantage of white supremacy.
Mhm.
Oh, you think I'm stupid? Great. because I'm gonna play stupid and I'm gonna get all this information because you don't think I have the capacity.
I
I
mean,
don't.
it wasn't that the whole concept behind the Ivan Dickinson play, the spook that sat by the door and everything like that? Was did you sit by the door and you learn a lot of lessons? I've told you before that I'm convinced. I mean, I wasn't living during the time, but I'm convinced that that's part of what Mr. Merrick was doing as he was cutting the hair of Mr. Duke. He was hearing all them deals that Duke was doing with the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers of the
Absolutely,
day. So he was bringing some of that information back to our Black Wall Street and everything when he was meeting with the Moores and the Merricks and people like that. Because
absolutely,
he's probably like, I just
absolutely.
heard Mr.
Cutting
Duke do
hair.
that deal, and we can do something similar.
Absolutely. And then Mr. Duke said, "Oh well, let me give you some money so it can help." And he's like, and to appease his ego, they put that picture of him up there in the hayrtie.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna put you across from Jesus, so we'll let you know we ain't studying, but I'm just saying that's what we were playing them.
Right.
And these people don't know our history. And there is one little white boy who went and studied our history. I said, but you don't. You are doing stuff for evil. Black people were not trying to destroy white people. We just
Mm-mm.
wanted to be free. Y'all want to destroy us and women and Hispanics and everything. And we are the majority. You're not going to win.
Mm-mm.
You're not going to win. And then most white people are not willing to die for this nonsense. They're like, I don't care that much about what you're doing. So you have this very small group of people who are like, yeah, 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 let's go. Y'all go.
Not only that, but it's my understanding from Rick Rosner, who's one of our other panelists here on the network and everything like that, that Americans in general, but particularly white Americans, are not necessarily trying to have a lot of babies either and everything like that. Because
Who
definitely
can
the
afford
African
it?
nations are the ones that are having the better birth rate and everything like that. So not only are they not thinking straight, but they're also not even populating the population and everything like that. So I think
Who
definitely
can
the
afford
African
it?
nations have a higher birth rate, and even some of the birth rates are higher in our Latin American countries and some of our other countries of color and everything like that. So definitely that's another
But
factor that they don't even weigh
who
in.
who can have babies? If
Right.
you are paying 1,000, I was sure this was my scale. I said, so when my grandmother bought her house cost $19,000 and she was paying $90 a month for the mortgage. Now, my mom and dad bought their house when they were all like about 30 years later, their mortgage was 30,000. Or they paid 30,000 for the house. I said, so we went from 19,000 to 30,000. So that's only an increase of 10,000. Why is my house 125,000?
Exactly.
That is outrageous. My house should have been 60, maybe 50 if we're gonna keep up with the what is it? The inflation.
Hmm. And that's why
Why?
some people, yeah, and some people even moved here, because I know that I was talking to one of my coworkers who moved from Antigua, and they were talking about the part of the reason they moved is because the currency rate was so ridiculously high in terms of the exchange rate and everything like that. So they'd actually
But
moved because they could make a lot more money here in the States than they were making in a country that is known for its poverty in the Caribbean and everything like that. And I imagine the same thing with some of our Haitian brothers and sisters as well, that they are moving here because they get better opportunities
oh,
in terms of the
right.
finance and the currency rate change.
That's why Bama is here because of the exchange rate. But now they are making it insane for us to stay here. And so, I mean, there people are charging $1,000 a week for daycare.
Hmm.
Like what? $1,500 a month? I'm like, what? And I'm charging less than half of that. I'm like, I can't understand. How are you But see, I'm in my home, so I don't have to pay all these exorbitant prices.
Right.
But it's crazy to me how people. So who can afford that? Somebody's gonna have to work a day shift and a night shift because child ain't even going to daycare. And if
Mm-mm.
they are, I mean, it's outrageous. It's unbelievable how much people. And then you're saying that these are the best daycares, but are they really? I don't know. I don't know. We put price tags on these places, and is your child learning anything during the day? I mean, what are we doing? And so it's really sad where we are right now. But
Oh, but not
but
only that, but you know what else is sad? And I was going to bring it up on one of my other shows, but I'll bring it up on yours. Is that I was on the bus yesterday. I was talking to a veteran, a brother that's going to the VA, and he was talking about how much he's part of the reason he moved here and he loves Durham is because he's near where he gets his care at, and he has a very positive attitude against about life and everything like that. But there was another brother that he was talking to in addition to talking to me that was from the Virgin Islands, and this brother was talking about how there was a church. I think it was in St. Thomas, but it was a church that was in one of their provinces or one of their parishes. And this church literally, we talk about how we don't do enough for our poor, and we're supposed to be one of the richest nations and everything. But he's saying there was a church when he was in the Virgin Islands in that community that, and he thinks they still do it now, were feeding their community members not once a day, but twice a day. They were giving them both breakfast and lunch 5 days of the week, and anybody could go and get it. You didn't necessarily have to be homeless. You just had to be wanting to get the service. And we can't even get people to get 1 day of service in some places around here and everything like that. But this is supposed to be one of the poorer countries, kind of like Haiti and everything like that. But we have a hard time getting housing, and there's a lot of unhoused. I know even near Haiti, there's some unhoused and some prostitution and drug communities and everything like that. But we have a hard time dealing with our own communities in the rich community. And I remember even judging some films for Full Frame, and there were some neighborhoods in California that were living in trailer parks. So we got people that are struggling to survive, whether it's an encampment or a trailer park. But this is an island in the Virgin Islands. I think it was St. Thomas, that they can literally feed people 10 days out of the week. Most people, I was telling a friend of mine earlier today, I mean, I know you're supposed to have 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but most people would skip one of those. They either skip breakfast or they skip lunch. So most people have 2 meals out of the day, not 3. And so they're just getting 10 meals out of the 14.
Man. And and the sad thing is that we could do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're spending more money. The money that we have already spent in this war,
Mm-hmm.
just in these 6 months, could have covered free college, could get rid of all the college debt. Everybody could go to college for free, cover all of the Medicare that we need, pay everybody, and we would still have money left over.
Right.
And we just don't want to do it. And so, but America has convinced poor white people that nobody deserves anything.
Right.
And it's insane because every other country is like, what do you mean you don't deserve it? If you're our citizen, we're supposed to take care of you. And
I think the Bible says the least of these, and I think even the Quran and other religious books talk about serving the least of these and everything like that, but we don't even follow those principles.
No, it was interesting because my kids are reading this book, a lot of Equiano. And at the end, I've talked about it, and it's always, sometimes the first time you read it, and this is my 3rd time reading it with a group of kids, and I said, "Oh my God, I think I missed that statement," but I did miss it because I had a question for it. But he asked. He was in Montserrat or in one of those islands, and he was like, "You all are so vicious to these people." And he was talking to this white overseer. He said, "Yeah, this man ran away, and I cut off his leg." Now, mind you, this book was written in 1789, something like that. He wrote this book in 1789.
Well,
He asked the guy, he said, "Well, what about do unto others as you would do unto yourself?" He said, "That's what Jesus said." And he said, "This ain't got nothing to do with Jesus. This is business." And he said, "But how are you going to put God's word, not use God's word as your parameter for how you treat other people?" He said, "Guess what? When I get to heaven, I'll deal with that. Right now I'm on earth, I'm going to deal with this." I said, "Now, what does that mean, children?" What does that mean, children? Please tell me what that means. There is a mindset. These people do not think that while they hold people accountable for the way they behave, with you can't be your women supposed to be here, women, the house man is head outside, all this stuff. There are no such, no gays. They want to hold you accountable for stuff that they think is in the Bible, but they're not gonna do it.
right.
What does that mean? And I think it's like, well, God should be guiding your decisions. I said, I just want you to hear y'all say that, so y'all understand. These are my 9-year-olds. My 9-year-olds were like, "But you should be held accountable if you say you're a Christian, and the Bible should be what helps you make your decisions." I said, out of the mouth of babes. I just want to hear y'all say that.
Out of the mouths of babes, like you said, those babes are tell you all kinds of amazing things. Sometimes even when I'm grading papers, or scoring them, as we like to call it in measurement, I'm shocked by some of the things that the kids say. I think I was grading some fourth graders, and one of them kids was writing a paper. I could have swore I was looking at a college dissertation because they were bringing up stuff even about orientation, like stuff around orientation and the whole trans and all of this kind of stuff within the context of their paper. And I'm going like, as I was reading the paper, I'm going like, this seems like something that a college senior
Student
would be
level, right,
writing, or
right,
even a
right. Yeah.
dissertation. But this is somebody in the 9 to 10 year old, and not given his parents might
Wow.
be smart and he might be listening to his parents as he's writing these papers. But I was just really impressed as I was going because I was like, because I had to remember, I'm like, this is not a 18 or a 21-year-old. This is a 9-year-old, and they're writing like they're in their 20s or 30s.
Yeah, and they're discussing this stuff because it's serious. But this is what happens when you read this literature. That's the reason why we need to know what our people said, because a lot of Equiano, like I said, that was the 1700s when he published this book. And I said, so look, how many you got? 1800s, 1900s. We're in the 2000s. This book was over 200, maybe almost 250 years ago, that Africans were saying the same thing, that we're like, what is going on,
Right.
America? These people have not, there's a group of people who just are not applying this to their daily life. So
Mhm.
that's it. That's how we got Trump. They're like,
Mhm.
well, he's Jesus. I said, but he don't do nothing to the Ten Commandments. He's broken every one of the Ten Commandments. Well,
He broke most of the commandments. He's just doing all kinds of stuff, and now he's trying to. Because I think he was even messing with the Pope earlier today. So now he's going after the
back
Pope,
to
and I'm
the
not saying
Pope
the Pope.
again.
He's,
I don't like.
he's going after representatives. I think he was even going after the woman that's with the Anglican Church. Yeah, like I said, he thinks that he is. I don't think that he thinks he's Jesus. I think that he thinks he's God.
He does have he's a narcissist, and
Right.
one guy said that he's very close to leaving this space, leaving this earth, and I'm like, please, how soon? How soon? Because we need him to go. We need him to go, and we need all his people. I really want to see the UN. I think the UN is failing miserably. They should
Yeah.
have put him in jail twice now. He should have been in jail for Venezuela, and
Mm-hmm.
he's been in jail when he bombed Gaza. What are you waiting for?
Yep.
What are you waiting for? You if America is part of NATO, America is part. Well, we're out of NATO, right?
We're
But
out of NATO
we're
because
part of.
I think he pulled us out of NATO, and now he's talking about pulling us out of the bases in Germany. And I know quite of ex veterans that used to go to those bases in terms of their service. But yeah, he's talking about pulling us out of Germany and Spain and a lot of the other European countries where we
They
had bases.
probably were like, "Yes, please go," because we we don't want another war. We don't want to be in a war, and so please go. And so, because they really are. It's tragic, and the gas prices.
Well, the gas prices are getting ridiculous, and they're going to continue to get worse.
Yeah, and he's sitting here like, okay, can we get out of this war now? I don't know. He's just sitting on it, like, well, I did that, so
We'll get to it when we get to it.
somebody need to do something. They need to
Yep.
listen to that man because he's dangerous, and what he's done. I mean, I have folks who are like, Mom Noni, I can't bring my kids to school every day.
Mm-hmm.
I can't afford it. The gas.
The gas and not only that, but the gas is ridiculous and everything like that. I was glad to see that my neighborhood is actually having parties and everything like that. So I think tomorrow we're going to have Wing Wednesday. So even the communities are recognizing that they've got to do something to help people in their community. Because even here at Duke Manor where I live, they're talking about biscuits on the go, so you can get biscuits in the morning and Taco Tuesdays, and they're even talking about the table game and pizza and ice cream night. So they hadn't been doing that. I think they did some during the pandemic, but it looks like they're recognizing that people need some
People
relief,
are
so
having a
they're
hard
trying to give some relief.
People are having a hard time. Having a
Right,
hard time. I told my parents, I said, just come as many days as you can. If you can't come every day, it's all right.
right.
I'm not even stressing. We're just trying to get through May, and in June we got our little thing going in June, and so we can get this thing over with because it's terrible. It's terrible. And people say you're not going to be able to go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
People are barely going to be able to eat, and this man is playing games. And I'm just praying that he continues to do this worse, the work I wanted to be so bad that there's nothing, there's no, we have no options except to get rid of him.
Yeah, because
I'm
there's some
praying.
people that are, yeah, I'm with you
I'm
on that.
praying.
There's even people that are concerned about seeing their family for the different events that are going on. Because, like I said, there's definitely graduation coming up very soon, and there's other things that are coming up soon as well. So there are people that are even concerned about that as well. There,
Yeah, because are you going to be able to drive? Are you going to be able to fly?
right?
You can't fly if there's no gas. They said some of these countries have already cut back all their schedules. America has what is it? That little one, Spirit Airlines said,
Yeah,
"Dude,
because Perry just went out of business.
out." Right, and that was very cheap if you wanted to go
Mhm.
somewhere fast.
Yeah,
Gone. So these other airlines, they're gonna be gone too, and they're like the country's falling apart. Oh well.
yeah, well,
Find out that hey, this is why I said, look, you better know about what your people were doing. They were spying, they were doing, and this is what we were doing when you could get killed for anything,
man, for just doing it.
anything. And
Yeah,
that's just why they didn't even know. We didn't even know about these people, the Black Dispatch. We didn't
mm,
even know about that. So
nope,
what are we gonna do now when we have more power? So we need to take the power we got
got
and
to take it back.
take it back and take them out.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we go.
On that note, we get ready to get out of here. We got the commercial about the parents and, of course, your school and everything. And I think I got the one about my friend Captain, who I was talking to earlier in his book. So I'll play those as we get out of here because he's got his
Okay.
book about slavery and his family connections. So I'll play all of
Okay.
those and get us on
Awesome.
out of here.
I think I bought that book.
You did?
I think I bought it. Is it the
Cool.
one with a black couple on the front, a mixed race couple on the front?
Mixed race on the couple, and he was talking about his family and their history. I'll actually play that first, and you can tell me if you watched it. So let's see. I'll play this, and then I'll play the other commercials. Did you buy this book?
They were never supposed to win. In a system built to keep black families landless, one decision changed everything. Bitter Ground's Inheritance tells the true story of heirs who fought through Jim Crow, courts, challenges, and silence to claim land, wealth, and legacy. Told by descendant Captain Newborn, this is more than a story, it's a rare victory. A must-read that exposes America's hidden past. Get your copy today.
I bought it.
Good.
I
I'll
got the
tell
book.
Captain that you bought a copy of his book and everything like that.
Yes.
Because Captain's who I do the Road to the Apollo with, and he founded that show and everything like that. So, and he was asking me
Right.
if anybody had bought it when I was playing these commercials. So I would let him know that my host with the most did buy a copy. So I would let him know that you bought a copy of the book.
Great. Yes, because I bought it and I said as soon as I fit, I read a lot of different books at one time, but I got it upstairs. When I got that book. I went ahead. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So yes,
I will
I'll
let
let
Captain know. So we'll go out with your commercial as well as the other one that we play often, which is about the family and everything like that. So we'll get ready to get
okay.
out of here. Fun
All right.
conversation. Like to pop in and do conversation with you every once in a while. A little bit longer than usual, but it's still a fun conversation. So
Oh yes,
glad
it
to
is.
have
It
this
was great.
conversation
It
with you.
was great.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
No problem.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
Before I go to your commercial and get us totally out of here and everything like that, who knew we even play hockey and everything like that? Because there are a couple of
Yes.
black players that are on the hockey team, including the Canes and everything like that. But who knew? We're into all kinds of sports, including hockey, because I know that most people think of that as being mostly a white sport, and it is mostly white
Mhm.
players
And I think
and
it's
from
part
the
of the Native
Scandinavian. But we're even playing some good hockey because there's some good
They're in
hockey
Canada.
players that are on our team. Mhm.
Up there in Canada, the northern part of the United States, absolutely. We had our own teams. That was crazy. That
Yep.
was crazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we got our own hockey teams, and we got hockey players that are playing in the playoffs now, including I think 2 or 3 that are on the Canes team, the team that's in Raleigh. So we've got we got some color even on our team locally.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Yep.
think that's great.
Very great. So go out with your commercial and get us on out of here.
Oh,
St. Cia student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I know my mom.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can play the drums.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Cia student.